Because your whole body will be sore, just your legs will be.
We're going. We're going. Hey, I am going to pass out some index cards, and we've got 15 in here. Okay, someone. No, we've got 14 in here right now. Okay. You are going to have an index card that corresponds with someone else in the classroom. You need to find them and then take some time to answer why that topic is important.
Stop saying. What's Dom saying? That's what I'm saying.
You looking for Saddam Hussein, Johnny?
Yeah.
I've still got Saddam Hussein, so you can be my partner. Yeah, you can be my partner. All right, find each other. Find each other. See if you guys can get it right.
Yeah, right. You write that card?
Someone else.
No, it's not. You look. Get one I ran. You mean the one after? You mean the one after I ran? Or the one after?
The second one I wrapped that we were involved in.
I think. Oh, you.
Which one is that?
Yes.
How many ones is there?
There we go.
I think so. I don't know what.
Show me your card. What is that? You don't think so?
It's a vlog.
She won't show me to me.
Yeah.
Weston, I was right the first time. I was right the first time.
Okay, let me make sure.
I did show you it. I said I had no idea.
Oh, my bad.
I didn't see how.
All right, make your pairs. Sit down together. Get in your pair. Get in your pair. I'm seeing Martin gaggle with a jiggle right now. There we go. That was good. Yes. Need one? Okay. Okay.
No, it was just the rest of that worksheet. Yeah.
Okay.
She gave us the answer.
Let's first make sure we got our pairs right. So Braxton and Carson. What do you guys have? Okay. You're there. What do you two have? Okay. Joey and Darren. Okay. Okay, you two are good. Abby and Tyson. Okay. Then Talbot. Okay. All right. Also, you guys please not stand right in front of the camera. Sit down. Okay. Good. Now take a few minutes. Now think, because I'm going to ask you what's important about that group or that event. Okay. What is important about that event or that group of people, and how does it affect the United States? And then we'll share as a group. Take a few minutes, and then probably the best answer you can come up with, write it on the back of your your index card. Okay. Okay. So you had. Okay. What do you think? Yeah.
Worse.
What happened?
Correct. It's a dictator.
Yeah. I want the worst dictator, but like, meanest dictator.
Maybe the most messed up.
Most messed up ever. That's, my knowledge. Hitler's right there. Based on.
So he's a bad guy, though, should not be in power.
Yeah. Why do you like him in power? I think the reason behind it. Because just saves as much lives and just makes you go to go back over the second time. If you really think it wasn't doing it the second time, it was just kind of like sit there and change. But the UN investigators.
So, okay, so you kind of glossed over that. What happens with Saddam Hussein that directly gets us involved? What does he do?
Attacking other countries without any reason to.
So,
Kuwait, I mean, yeah, the reason to attack Kuwait, but he didn't have the jurisdiction to do it. I mean, he had the reason to, because he wanted to build right. He didn't really have
so he had a motive, but not a legitimate reason.
Yeah, motive.
Okay,
Motive.
yeah. He had motive.
Iran just, that's just, that's just crazy.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with 9/11? Why do you say that?
Yes, I think
You said yes and no. Which one do you say?
yes. I don't think he planned it. I think he was orders to attack.
Saddam. You think so? But did he have any connection with Al Qaeda?
No, that's yes. But look at this one right here. He's hiding himself from it. It's like him directly involved. So he doesn't come back to him when he wants to get back home to the US. Conspiracy.
Well, that's quite a confusion. No. He has nothing to do with 9/11. But that's kind of why I want to go through it, because there's two kind of separate worlds and wars to get involved in over there. One has a lot to do with 9/11. One is just we've got this megalomania, and Howard is just messing everything up. He's messing up the whole world, or the whole geopolitical environment, making it worse for him. He definitely has a part to play in the mess that becomes the Middle East. So it's just the mess that exists in the Middle East. But like, so then when we look at Operation Iraqi Freedom, our invasion of Iraq, people are like, well, why are we here? Because this has nothing to do with 9/11. Well, we should be in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Iraq.
These are the Afghanistan.
Sorry,
We need to be in Iraq. I know we don't interfere with what they do inside the borders, but he attacked Iran. He attacked Kuwait. Who's he gonna attack next? If he does have nuclear weapons, he can start nuclear fallout. Maybe not nuclear fallout.
So yeah, there's reason to attack him, but it's a separate reason.
Yes, different.
You got it.
Still not saying. Still. You're conspiracy theory.
So you want to write down you want to write down like really just the cliff notes you told me. Who is Saddam Hussein? What does he do? How does that implicate us? How are we coming as a group? How are we coming? Feeling pretty good. Hopefully working out the kinks from the first quiz. Making this all make more sense. Okay, are we ready to go then? We're ready to get this done, not quite, we need a little bit more time then.
If they're in between, we can. If they're at the end. I guess I'm not supposed to, but it's like that. Pretty sure, because there's numbers after it.
Oh, you're using.
You wanna, okay, that sounds good, but, I would, yeah, I think you could. Well, like, to say, well, he may be the greatest dictator in history, that's kind of subjective, like, like this, he attacked countries, yeah, that's objective, this is more subjective, what's, what makes him crazy? Yeah, he's using gas attacks, torturing people. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Just be able to explain yourself. Take 12 milk cards. And then give one to him. Well, I don't think, we'll just explain from our procedure. Yeah, well, unless Jasmine shows up. She'll show up eventually.
Well, then I gotta go.
Go back to your seat. Go back to your seat. I still see some people writing, so I'll give you a little bit more time. Okay, we good now? Are we good? Almost. All right. Please close Chromebooks then, so I sure to have your full and undivided attention. Okay, let's do this. Let's start with the Gulf War. Who's got okay, Gulf War, and then what was the other note card that went with it? Okay. What is important about the Gulf War? How are we involved? In Kuwait. Because first time around, Saddam Hussein attacks Iran, and we're like, okay, whatever, we really don't care. In fact, we help Saddam Hussein. Then he attacks Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, and we look a little bit differently at that. So we not only support them, we send troops over, right? It's the first war we're involved in the Middle East. How does it go for us? Yeah, you're thinking of another one. It ended in a few weeks, goes really quickly. So we look back at that war, and like before this class, how many of you had even heard of the Gulf War? Like a handful of you. It's a war that happened only 30 years ago. We really we don't hear much about it because it was a war that went well. Wars that go well, we actually, we don't hear that much about unless it's World War II because there's not criticism of that war. Went pretty well. Then it ends, Derek. What's the kicker though when it ends? We win, it goes well for us. What ultimately happens though? Saddam Hussein stays in power. That leads us to, what do you think the next group should go? Who should that be? Gulf War ends. What do you guys have? OIF. Okay, so OIF. What is important to know about that war?
Invaded Iraq on suspicion of MWD and overthrew the government causing the
WMD, not MWD. Weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He stays in power, and there was like this stipulation though, where we said, Saddam, if you stay in power, you have to let these independent inspectors from the UN come in and make sure you're not doing anything bad like creating weapons of mass destruction. He wouldn't let them in until the very last moment. Did they find weapons of mass destruction? But did it look suspicious?
Yes.
And that's the problem. It's one of those things. It's like Saddam Hussein really should have read the story of the boy who cried wolf growing up, because he does all these bad things. He invades countries unprovoked. We'll let Johnny take care of that, because that's what he's going to talk about. He does all these things that are bad, and then he says, oh, I'm not doing anything bad now. Well, how can we trust you? You wouldn't even let these UN inspectors come in for the longest time. And yeah, okay, so OIF, you really nailed it on the head how it began. What about, how does it go for us? How does it end? Quickly, once again, we overthrow Saddam Hussein very quickly, and then there's an insurgency that does not go well, right? It's always those insurgencies that become problematic. So, now I brought this up with Johnny. The Gulf War and then the war in Iraq. Does this have anything to do with 9/11? What do you guys think? Does it have anything to do with 9/11? Because we've been talking about 9/11. The wars in Iraq, did they have anything to do with 9/11? You think no, Weston? Because what countries connected with 9/11? Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda, and Taliban. So, like I said, the war in Iraq, so the Gulf War, you really never hear much criticism of that war. For one, Saddam Hussein invades. He invades a country. If you invade a country like Kuwait, you're probably going to get attacked, right? OIF, he has not invaded another country, but he's remained in power. We think he may be doing some suspicious stuff. But because of that, a lot of Americans, after a while, said, wait a second, why did we go into this war in the first place? It doesn't have anything to do with 9/11. Saddam Hussein didn't have weapons of mass destruction, and he didn't invade anyone. So why did we get involved in this war? Now, that brings us to Johnny, and Jasmine, you can add anything that you want to, but I know you just got here. But I don't know. What type of person was Saddam Hussein? Johnny? You say a crazy man. Why was he crazy?
Because he just did.
What are some things he did?
Attack the country with motive, but like no reason to.
Mm-hmm.
Attack the Kuwait and then oil, but like should have known like people were gonna.
But he was completely unprovoked.
Yeah.
Or Iran, no reason. All right, that's something Hitler did, right? Hitler invaded countries unprovoked. What were some other crazy things?
Torturing his people, using gases that
Using Tabin gas, which is the gas that Hitler refused to use. So, when we step back and we talk about the second invasion of Iraq, and I've stressed this point many times before, but we should remember who this person was. what he was doing in his country. So we've been focusing on the Middle East, and a big part of that is 9/11. But all these wars and all the stuff going on in Iraq really kind of happens separately from 9/11 and what happens in Afghanistan. But there are reasons we get involved in wars there. It's important to understand why. Okay, so let's flip over to Afghanistan then. Actually, no, I want to flip over to a topic that no one had for a presentation, but I threw it in there. Three countries that were listed out. Who's got that? Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. So what card did that go with? Supported by the U.S. Okay, so let's talk about how Israel we might come back to, but Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Why do we support those countries for one? Because why did Saddam Hussein try to invade Kuwait and Saudi Arabia? What was the reason there? They've got a lot of something. Yeah, oil. And for many years we have had agreements with those countries that because we are going to provide defense for those countries, we get what's called preferred oil interests, or we are like the first buyers at a lower price of their oil. So we have a very close connection with those countries, which is why we come to their defense. Now, another reason this comes in, so we support Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and we support Israel, right? Because that's the country we helped create. How does Osama bin Laden see it?
Evie, please come to the office. Evie, please come to the office. I also need Lennox Pettiford, please come to the office. Lennox, please come to the office.
How does how does Osama bin Laden see it when we support those countries? Where's Osama bin Laden from? He's from Saudi Arabia. So, in the Gulf War, we go in and defend Saudi Arabia from invasion, right? Osama bin Laden says, "Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for defending my home country," right? Now, what's he say? Well, how does he view it? Yeah, he is offended that this outside non-Muslim country is coming in and defending his Muslim homeland. And then, how does he feel about Israel? Why would he not like it? What did you say, Sarah?
Because we support it.
We support it. Wouldn't do you have something to add, Johnny?
Israel isn't Muslim.
They're not Muslim. Think of it this way. So you've got the Muslims live in the Middle East, and these outside Western non-Muslim countries come in, split up the land, and say, we're going to create this non-Muslim country right here. All right? They don't like it. So one of the biggest motivating factors for Osama bin Laden to carry out 9/11 is our support for Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Israel. Okay, so then that leads us to, how about this? What organization was Osama bin Laden first part of originally? Mujahideen. So this group right here. What is the Mujahideen?
Islamic organization that advocates for the overthrow of the leadership of Iranian.
What card does Braxton have? What do you have? Yeah. So why does the Mujahideen, why are they formed in the first place? And they are not trying to overthrow the government of Iran. Because you Googled it. All right, how about this? Someone other than Johnny, why is Mujahideen formed? Mujahideen. Do we recall what? They're Muslim freedom fighters. Who are they? What are they fighting against? Question. Soviet Union. Soviet Union invades Afghanistan. Are they terrorists? Are they a government? No. They're simply just Muslim men that come to Afghanistan. They are trying to stop the invasion of the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union is trying to take over Afghanistan. That is really how Osama bin Laden gets his start. Okay. Then then the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, they defeat the Soviet Union. All right, they've won. Their war's over. Then what does Osama bin Laden say? Does he throw his gun away, throw down his weapon, say, okay, time to go home, I'm just going to go back to whatever I was doing? What does he do? A lot of you are shaking your head. What does he do then? Out of the Mujahideen. So who's got Al-Qaeda? Okay, what do you guys have? What do you guys have written down? Okay. First of all, what are they? How do we define Al-Qaeda? They are the terrorist organization. So, and like I said, what's important? Why do we get involved? Tyson, you say 9/11, right? The terrorist attack. They are actually the ones who are responsible. Was the Taliban responsible for 9/11? No, they did not help plan it, but we'll get to them in a second. So they carry out 9/11. Do you recall any of the other terrorist attacks they carried out? 9/11 is the most famous. Then you got the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, 1990 bombing of our embassy in Kenya, 1996 bombing of United States Army barracks in Saudi Arabia. So they had a long history of terrorist attacks on the U.S. Okay, then the last one we should have is the Taliban, right? All right, who has Taliban? Okay, you are with Morgan. All right, what do you guys have? Okay. Anything to add, Morgan? So what would our connection to the Taliban be? Why would we end up fighting them, Morgan? Did they carry out 9/11? Did the Taliban carry out 9/11? So why, when we invaded Afghanistan, did we start fighting the Taliban? We do start fighting them. Why is that? I mean, Wyatt kind of explained a little bit. What are they? What is the Taliban? What are they? Are they a terrorist organization, a government? The Taliban?
Oh, yeah.
The Taliban is the government. Taliban is the government. So, because they're the government, what do they do in Afghanistan? What is the Taliban known for? Johnny? Right. They are like an extreme Islamic government. What is their relationship to Al Qaeda? So remember, I always like try to explain it this way. If the Taliban is the government of a country, we believe a legitimate country should fight against terrorists or stop terrorists from operating in their country. What if our government allowed terrorists to operate out of the United States? Would we consider that like an illegitimate government?
Yeah.
Or a bad government, at least, right? So, but that's what the Taliban does, right? They they're all buddy-buddy with Osama and Al-Qaeda, and they say, yeah, that's fine. You can go ahead and plan 9/11 in our country. We won't do anything. We'll give money to you. We will allow a safe haven in our country for you to operate. You can carry out terrorist attacks from our country. So, no, the Taliban, they could say, well, we didn't actually do 9/11, and no, they didn't, but they're somewhat complicit, right? Because they are providing support to the actual group who did. Okay, 10 minutes left now. I want to kind of sketch this out into a timeline. So, let's say we'll do Iraq, and then we'll do Afghanistan. So, since we've been focusing on the Middle East, what's like the date? What do you got, Johnny?
So is Al Qaeda like still involved in Afghanistan?
So, in 2012, there was like this divorce between Al Qaeda and the Taliban, and they like had this falling out. They no longer got along. So now, because the Taliban is back in power in Afghanistan, we've talked about that. They are no longer like aligned or allied with Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda still exists. They are still a terrorist organization, but they are a hollow shell of what they used to be. In fact, when ISIS started, it was a lot of former Al Qaeda insurgents and terrorists joined ISIS because Al Qaeda got so thoroughly gutted when we went into Afghanistan that their organization really broke down.
So ISIS is kind of like
yes, but now ISIS is pretty much on life support too. They've been quite thoroughly decimated. It's like Mujahideen, Al Qaeda, ISIS. It's a different world. It's a different, they think differently than we do. These young men over there, they always want to be part of some type of Islamic army that's going to fight for Islam. First it was Mujahideen, then it was Al Qaeda, and then ISIS, and they're always looking for a fight to take on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
so then who's the top? Like, is there still a terrorist organization with the Taliban?
probably, once again, kind of same with Saddam Hussein. Say, oh, I don't have weapons of mass destruction. Well, I don't have a good reason to trust you. As far as last I checked, though, last I knew, Al Qaeda and the Taliban are no longer allied like they used to be. But I'm sure the Taliban they are supporting terrorism in some way. Because it is a very bad, government. Okay. Since we've been focusing on the Middle East, what date do I kind of start with? What time frame are we looking at? Present day, how far back? When we're talking about like Mujahideen and Saddam Hussein, how far back does that go? Like, what's our start? What should it be? Yeah, when was that? What was the big? Yeah, that was the big date that said everything really started to change. So like, let's say 1979. So if we consider Iraq, we've got Iraq here and Afghanistan. What would be the first step in our timeline for events in Iraq? Like what would it be? How does it all begin? Does it begin with the Gulf War?
No.
Well, why not? You would say the Gulf War?
Yeah.
Why does the Gulf War begin, though?
Because Saddam Hussein is crazy.
Okay, so we might start with Saddam Hussein. How does Saddam Hussein come to power? Someone else. Wyatt. You seem to want to help us out quite a bit. He's a dictator, right? Is he So is he fairly elected? Is he an elected leader? He just takes control of the government. So Saddam Hussein comes to power. That happens in 1979. Okay. Then Johnny, you said he's a crazy guy because what does he do once he's in power?
Well, isn't like as soon as he's in power, he carries out like 66 66
66.
like
Oh, the fatwas?
yeah,
The orders to like kill all these people?
yeah, all the Congress people.
Oh yeah, and he has that meeting and all those people are pulled out and they're executed. Yeah, the Bath Party purge. There you go. So yeah, we call that the Bath. It's kind of funny, yeah. It sounds like they're having a Bath party. It sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? The Bath Party purge. Okay, and then what's the Johnny? You shared enough for today. What's the first country Saddam Hussein invades? Was in power Weston. No, it was the first one. Iran. He invades Iran. He's got that war, and he uses gas attacks. He's killing civilians. Then Morgan, that war ends. What's the next country he invades? What's the next war? What war would go next here on this timeline? What would go next? What logically makes sense to go next here? What do you think, Devin? The Gulf War, yeah, because that's when he invades Kuwait. All right, then what would go next? OIF. Okay. All right, now we've really been focusing hard on these key events. So hopefully now it's starting to. Is it solidifying in your brain, Carson? Is it starting to make sense now? Can you see it start to play out? Clear as mud. Okay. So if we're to do the same thing for Afghanistan, all right, how would it all begin? So if we put 9/11 right here, 9/11 is what happened. Where does the timeline of 9/11 begin? How far back would we go? The Soviet-Afghan War, Soviet invasion. What does the Soviet invasion cause? That causes the Mujahideen, who we support, right?
Yes.
Mujahideen. All right. And then Osama bin Laden comes along. What happens to Mujahideen? Morgan. What happens to Mujahideen once Saddam or Osama bin Laden comes to power? He creates Al Qaeda. Okay, and then why I put these countries in, like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, Osama, and how it is connected a little bit, right? Because Johnny and I talked about, well, does Saddam Hussein have anything to do with 9/11? At the surface, no. But what's one reason that Osama bin Laden wants to carry out 9/11? What do you got there?
We carried the Israel and we support.
We support Kuwait. We become their defense. And that's one of Osama bin Laden's justifications.
Explain how to.
I said, I'm right